Let's do a live demo of vibe management in action. On Monday, in the last Captain's Insights article, I broke down how I built my little Jarvis environment out of cursor and linear, which is what you can see right now here being open. You can look at my current project management week with the events that are coming up. And so I look at what I'm currently working on. Content week 7, I know it's under control, but I need to plan ahead, right? And now I'm going to show you my full mad content cascade as a demo. And I think it's a beautiful application of one can call vibe management. Let's get started. So on the left-hand side, you can see here the cursor agent. I'm using Cloud Opus, and I usually have like a quarterly plan for the week. So let's ask the AI what the plan currently is for week 8. Hey, what's the content plan for week 8 when you look at our quarterly overview? And there is the plan. You can see that all of the topics I talked about in the past, what my evil plan was behind them. And in here we can see week 8. We know there's going to be an event called the Builder Lab, so it needs to be related to building, to vibe coding real products. And I decided, okay, the vibe coding stack is the topic. You can always in cursor open another browser tab here. Just click in the top right, open a browser, put in any URL. This is how I call up linear. And I've already done this vibe coding stack landing page with all of the tools. This is like 4 months old, so it must be ancient in AI days. So let's update that, the recommendations, and let's create a full article around it and update this resource as an evergreen resource. I like it. I also like this animation that we can definitely use for the article as well. So we are happy with that. Now we need to get into the very nitty-gritty day-to-day work that needs to get done. Let me just show you last week. This is actually the current week. Here is my week 7 content project. And these are all of the things that I've already done. You can see that I did some weekly planning and outlining, which we will do together today. We recorded a whole Captain's Insights video. We drafted the article. We will do that together as well today. And then I had announcement videos on Monday, sent out an email campaign, but there are still things to do. Here are all of the things that I'm pushing out over the week. So I've set up a little project, a little markdown file that has all of my opinions on how to set up this weekly cycle. So let's do that together. All right. I really like the idea. We definitely need to fine tune the title yet, but use our weekly planning document to get the process started for week 8. So it by now usually knows, but just in case it doesn't, I can always tag this piece of content. So it's called something with weekly in it. And there is it, like the PS weekly content plan. This is also a very, very intentional process that the AI takes me through. This, I'm not yet a fan of this complete hands-off approach. I want to give it as much soul as I possibly can. In the meantime, I can show you this weekly content plan. If you press Command P, you can always pull up new files and do all kinds of things in cursor. If I again type in weekly, open that markdown document, press Command Shift V, actually not B, I accidentally pressed that. You can now see it in a bit more normal structured text. And you see it's a long document. It has all of my opinions on how to do that. One of the things that I needed to create is one long form weekly documentation of all of the decisions that we have made, of the content, of my input, what we have published, where the YouTube videos, where the podcast is, where the email newsletter is. And this is what it is creating right now. I can show you some from the last weeks as well. So here you can see in the docs folder, I have all of my Captain's Insights organized week by week. I got my quarterly overview, and here is last week, and everything about last week is documented in here. Why do I do this? I want the AI to know what good looks like and the content that I've already published. I can always reference these documents to adapt my tone of voice, how it has developed over the weeks, make updates to the defaults. When you create a new document, every line is new, so it's green. And right now it decided this is where the URL is going to live. It decided on an article, the vibe coding stack that ships. Let's see if there are some improvements to be done, but I already like it better than it was and than what it originally had in mind. And there's some pre-planning steps that I have noticed over time that are kind of necessary, that the AI guides me through this. So if we scroll down here, it says, hey, week 8 pre-planning is completed. And now it asks me a couple of things to add. So what needs to happen next? Finalize the title, interview me about that topic, run news research, approve the outline. And this is what I essentially want you to do in this live demo with me. I also usually have like a calendar review process in here, maybe an idea backlog. So let me quickly check my calendar if next week is happening something relevant that we want to introduce into the content plan for next week. And on Tuesday, I'm meeting my friend Jono with the optical team. And this could be a beautiful case for my Wednesday post, where I usually want to show something that happens in real life. So let's see that it spelled everything right, because optical is written in a difficult way. And let's see what else I can give it in terms of input. Let's also ensure that the existing build stack website is included in this process. I actually have the intention of updating that page and taking a lot of that context, at least tool-wise, and pull that into the live article. So here you can see there is quite a manual step in here. And why is it worth it, in my opinion? Because this increases the quality by an insane amount. So I looked for the article that I just showed you with this beautiful graph with the floating circular icons, and I needed to definitely build on top of that. And I would say next, it should interview me. I'm also happy with the article title that you did, like the vibe tool stack that ships. We'll have to fine tune the subtitle yet, but we'll get there. Give me your current outline that you have in mind, and then interview me on the details. Now, this is, as I said, my opportunity to breathe in soul, to update it, to give it my opinion, to have a lot less generic process. I've already kind of completed this process, and every time I didn't like something, every time I noticed, oh, this type of post is not landing, or I don't feel comfortable with that, I can just tell it to change the weekly outline, the preparation document. So I know that in the future, this will be referenced again, and every week will be a significant improvement. Okay, let's say it sees I approved the title, the subtitle is still to be approved. Why am I agonizing about that? Because in my experience, that is what everyone sees. If you go to this article from this week, Meet Jarvis, my vibe manager, that's going to decide what people are clicking on. And when they read this short description, they're going to decide, is this something I'm going to take now 15 minutes out of my time? All right, so always read the chat on the left-hand side and follow the process. Let the AI guide you through it, throw back the questions that you don't want to answer, and let's see what it comes up with next. Okay, the outline is just here in the chat. On the right-hand side, I'm showing you the reference that the AI uses to interview me. This has also developed over time, of course, but I needed to ask me questions about, like, what is the problem? What is the mechanic behind it? What is my personal insight? The play? Like, how do I actually do it? What is the concrete example? What happens if things go wrong? Maybe a personal proof story, these kinds of things. So let's read the current outline and see what it would ask me. So at the moment, it would structure this article on the Vibe tool stack like this. It would start with the problem, the dead end trap. Why most Vibe coders keep starting from scratch. The one-shot tools, tutorial stacks, tools that don't talk to each other, felt pain. You build something cool, but you can't extend it, and you can't add payment, and you can't add auth, and so on and so forth. This is incredible that it knows this already about me and how I think about it. What makes the stack compound? The criteria for a compounding stack. Not which is the best tool, but do these tools make each other more powerful over time? sharing conventions, AI readability, composability, the argument that the relationship between tools matter more than the individual tool quality. Next part of the article, the compound effect in practice, examples from Pirate Skills showing how layers reinforce each other, adding analytics made auth decisions clearer, and then your tech stack audit, the 7-day ship plan. Now it suggests to me the first question. When you look at vibe coders and builders you interact with in the builder lab, in the community, in the DMs, what's the most common stack related pain you see? What does it actually feel like when someone's stack doesn't compound? Can you give a specific example? Good question. We often have in the community what I call like the lovable refugees. While these one-shot tools are good for building like internal tools or prototypes, people tell me that they kind of ran against a wall of complexity where they just couldn't continue, or they couldn't build in a certain feature, like, for example, payments or proper authentication, or really like their own database into it. And there are very few ones that even dare to touch something like payment. But if you are in the Pirate Skills community, most of you actually want to build your own SaaS. And SaaS without payment is a bit of a joke. It's a demo, it's nice, but we want to do everything ourselves. Question 2. You said people hit the wall where they just can't continue. What specifically makes a tool a dead end versus something that compounds? When you compare what someone built in a one-shot tool to what you build with your stack, what's the actual structural difference? Is it about code ownership, extensibility, the ability to add layers? So let me think. So the biggest difference I observe is the following. Having the awareness of what happens in the background. Those tools do a lot of decisions for you, making you vulnerable to getting trapped into one track that doesn't scale. So let me give you some examples. When you're building your first features, the AI is going to make mistakes and you run against bugs. So those tools, as I hear it from the people I'm working with, have a very limited ability to fix bugs compared to a tool like Cursor or Claude Code. That is one thing. And then you're not as free in choosing the tools you want to externally connect with through skills or MCP servers. Then the database is often baked in, which doesn't allow you to take it with you wherever you like. This is not always true, but can be. And if I look at how these databases were structured, it's a huge mess, and I have no idea how they will ever get to a state where 100,000 people are going to use this, and you still know kind of what is happening where. Also, while it is somewhat possible, working together with multiple people on the same project is pretty restricted on tools like Lovable and V0, and they are enhancing these features, but the normal workflow that developers have established over 30 years with Git workflows just doesn't apply. And if you ever want to get like a senior developer that takes this from 1 to N, they will probably just want to rebuild everything that you have kind of prototyped in there. Not that developers not already have a natural tendency to just rebuild everything. Then whenever something new is coming out, like for example, the Vercel AI SDK or the workflows feature, you have to often wait until these providers create like a little plugin for that world for it to work. So you generally feel behind. And the biggest thing is often payments, that it's either not possible at all or only with compromises that you maybe can create like a Stripe payment link, but everything that needs to happen afterwards, verifying the payment, managing users, access, handing out credits and so on is difficult. The price you have to pay on the other side of choosing your own stack is learning the skills and the basic understanding of these parts of software development, which can be a lot for people. But if you are the person who says, I want to build my own SaaS, I want to charge people for a good service, you owe it to yourself and to the people that are using your product that you understand this, that you can fix bugs, that you can make it as secure as possible, given our abilities at this point in time. Okay, now I sent this off again, and you can see how it's processing the data and how the follow-up questions are not generic, but they actually update itself based on the input that I've already given. Don't want to be asked generic questions. I want to have smart follow-up sequences. So let's go into the next question. The stack, the layer by looking at your stack, you have 16 tools for the article. You probably don't want to walk through all 16 with equal depth. Some are more critical, and the compounding arguments to the compounding argument than others. If you had to pick 5 to 6 layers that matter the most. So let's ask the AI what it would do. Could you propose a suggestion for me? So the AI would go for layer 1 cursor, the brain. We should just suggest like the left and right alternatives here, which either reduces complexity or increase complexity with the pains and gains that come with that. Right now, it would structure it for cursor, the brain, Next.js and Vercel, the shipping engine, Superbase for the database, Clerk for the identity layer, Stripe for payment, and then layer 6 ChatCN UI and Tailwind for the AI-friendly UI. Intentionally lighter, post hoc, linear, end-to-end, resend. Yeah, let's see. I'm not sure I agree to that. All right, this is already an interesting approach. I like layer 1 with cursor. The only thing that I would kind of change is that every time we recommend a tool, we should also have 1 or 2 tools as an alternative for this layer. For lower complexity, recommend something like Lovable, and for higher complexity, feel free to recommend Cloud Code, with my solid recommendation in the middle being cursor. Then layer 2, I'm also fine with Next.js and Vercel. Make sure that we clearly understand why we have chosen that. It's similar to in the good old days to decide like what CMS are you going to use? Am I going to do it on WordPress or Webflow? Next.js is that equivalent. It's a web development framework that has very clear standards, is fast, is good for SEO, and is very popular, and the AI knows it very well. And it's built by Vercel, a company that is completely obsessed about developer experience and hosting good websites, which is the way they make money. So that combination is beautiful here. Actually wouldn't do another recommendation in terms of alternatives. There are some, nothing I can recommend from my end. So here's also where I would make the first change. Next, I would talk about the design layer with ChatCN UI and Tailwind, and what you argued for there is pretty good. Then we can have Superbase as the next layer to own your own data, and then Clerk for login and Stripe for payment. Those layers all make sense to me. Now, I have to consider if I want to add some one marketing layer on top of that, specifically email and analytics. So maybe we do a little marketing layer on top with post hoc and resend there. Let's not talk about end-to-end and Playwright, but since we so heavily leaned onto linear in the last article, let's lump that with post hoc and resend. Maybe you find a cool title for the layer. Maybe it's the organizational layer. I don't know yet. Something like that. So things I wouldn't include these days are OpenRouter, end-to-end, Playwright. I think we should add end-to-end into this layer with resend and post hoc, and linear as an organizational layer, but we need a better name for that. And I noticed that we forgot GitHub. We need to add GitHub to the shipping engine. All right, I sent this now off with my personal opinion on what is important right now, what are the current alternatives that I seriously consider, and made some substantial updates to this list. Let's see what the AI comes up with. Now what it does, it adds all of this information that I gave it through the interview into this document. And I'm leaving it consciously in the markdown mode, because you can now see the green lines that are added. This is now my week 8 overview, where I have this over the week, the constant information back and forth with the AI. Hey, what have we already done? What have we completed? Could you save the YouTube URLs, etc.? We have this in here, and I can already see like what alternatives it suggested, and I can say what I'm okay with or not. So let me just review what it said. All right, I actually do not want to mention an alternative every time. All right, let's talk about question 4. So the first real compounding moment was between Cursor, Next.js, GitHub, and Vercel. Once you have set this up right, you have this moment where you can just speak to Cursor. It does changes on your website, automatically commits it to GitHub, which triggers a new so-called deployment on Next.js, and boom, the changes that you just voiced into an AI chat showed up on a live production website. That I can never go back on. That keeps me from even considering any other page builder. And I'm not married to any of these tools like Next.js, but it just turns out that the AI can really work well with it. Yes. Another great example was recently when I created the hackathon landing page, where in Cursor it had my complete code base. It knew how I wanted to structure and style my landing pages. And it built a beautiful website and even did all of the necessary changes to the database, like adding it to the event lists, adding it to our what we call like offer unlocks, creating a product for it in Stripe, integrating the login and Stripe experience fully, building its own thank you page, and giving the user the right resources that they should have access to after signing up for the hackathon. That was a complete full stack experience where I thought like, that's the one. And then it even in one flow suggested to me how to write the sign up confirmation mails when people signed up for the hackathons, beautifully designed how I want them. I could also with one more prompt add custom tracking events to it for post hoc. And this whole project was managed in one linear project where I explained what I wanted to do, and I in Cursor broke it down into issues, created them in linear, and then we worked through them, just like I explained before. So far, so good. They often try to do too much instead of like slowly adding layer by layer. This is our main intention of how we set up the builder codex. If we look at the builder codex, we have clear levels where we get people introduced to this, and they need to kind of get comfortable with one layer, not mastering it, just not being scared of it, and getting comfortable with setting up a landing page and this whole deployment process with Vercel, and dealing with how Cursor looks like in the very beginning, and then learning to scope an idea that they have to something that the AI can manage and how to debug that. And then adding like the database, the auth system, the payment system, and other fancy features that they want to add. Another failure mode is that instead of making a conscious decision for a stack, they just let the AI choose it for them, leading into dead ends. Yeah, this stack that I'm suggesting here, you can build any SaaS with that you have in mind, and I still have to discover its limitation. Right, that was a good question 5. You can see how this interview process helps me step through this idea and really introduce a bit of soul into it, opinion, that you don't generate just AI slop. Okay, let's continue with question 6. This week's Builder Lab is on February 18th. Given that this article is about the vibe coding stack, what do you envision for the Builder Stack Lab session? Would you like to walk people through setting up the stack live, show them the compounds, combining facts and action, or focus on the stack audit, helping attendees evaluate their own setup? What would make sense? Leave this session. Okay, that's instead of the 7-day ship plan. Yeah, I want to do something a bit different here. I want to help the users make these stack decisions throughout this process. And after every section, they get to choose 3 options, the golden middle, which I recommend, and then maybe an alternative to the left that leans toward less complexity, and to the right that leans towards more senior developers. So every section now actually kind of needs below each section one decision a user makes. And I want users to see what the other people that have read this article have chosen. And at the end, instead of the 7-day ship plan, they get a visual representation of the stack that they have chosen. And they need to be able to easily copy paste that so that they can continue the discussion about this stack with an AI of their choice. So, and this is how I imagine I go through the builder session as well. Okay, this is a good moment. The AI collaboration brought an idea in my mind that would make the article way more interactive for the users. So I decided that after every section, a user can, if they want to, make a decision on what they would choose. And of course, I have a bias and I'll make a strong recommendation, but we can see what people decide for themselves. And at the end, they see a summary of the stack that they have chosen. Now, all of this is processed into our document again. New lines are being added. And can you see how this document is enriched? Red lines are deleted lines. Green lines are newly introduced lines. And this is what I want. I want it to soak all of the information up, all of the opinions I have on this. And that's just what I want. Still not sure about the URL here. Vibe coding stack. It's good. It's plain. I usually tend to try to do two smart things. Maybe I would not divide it into 3 pieces. All right, the document is updated. The big shift, instead of traditional articles, 7-day ship plan, this is an interactive builder step. The reader makes real decisions on every layer, and at the end, I get a visual summary. So what captures so far from the interview, the lovable refugees, alternatives to layers 3, 4, and 5, 6. To these layers, get 3 options too. Now we're almost at the end, and the AI is asking me some follow-up questions here. Let's go through them. The layers 3, 4, 6, and 7 now also need alternatives. Level 7 is special. Let's call it the operations layer. I love that. But this is more like a multiple choice thing. It's not choosing one tool, but choosing among tools for that. But 3, 4, and 6 definitely need these simpler and more developer-friendly alternatives, and I need you to pitch them to me. So I need to agree on those. Then the last thing is the stack builder component. Now, I definitely want the stack builder component to be done in this week in this article. And after we have done this article, I definitely need you to note down and create a linear task later that we update the builder stack evergreen page. Here we can see a section in my planning doc called like the hardening steps. What I learned like after week 3 is that it all comes down to starting with a soft outline, hardening that to a more and more complete piece. Otherwise, I'll be very unsatisfied with the version that the AI one-shotted. I want to be taken along. I want to infuse what I think is right in here. But I'll be informed by the AI. I get suggestion and I'll confirm or deny them. All right, let's answer some questions that it has. The recommended one is Shadzy and UI plus Tailwind for the design layer. The simpler is the Daisy UI. Yeah, I like that. And here we need to already step it. Okay, about layer 3. Daisy UI is a solid recommendation for a simpler path, but the advanced path cannot be Radix because Radix is out of date now. No one is developing it, and the team moved to base UI. So recommend like base UI plus custom Tailwind. That is fine. For layer 4, for the database. For the simpler stack is whatever database comes with your Lovable solution. So maybe that is Superbase as well. But please do some research on what database would somebody use that would be using Lovable if there is even a decision for that. So for the revenue layer, that's a bit difficult because I like Lemon Squeezy as a recommendation, but they got bought by Stripe. But it's still simpler. And maybe instead of Pedal, we can recommend Polar. But could you check if there is not even a simpler thing than Lemon Squeezy that especially like for non-techies is easy to adapt? Imagine somebody being in Lovable and needing to decide like, okay, what payment provider do I use? Does Lovable provide default Stripe integration? If that is fine, then we should double down on that. Level 7 looks good. Post hoc, recent, linear, and it. I need to see your recommendations for the other layers that we didn't discuss yet, like level 1 and 2 and so on. So how about we do the following? All of the simpler paths, we completely align with whatever the default is with Lovable. So you choose Lovable, whatever the shipping engine of Lovable is that. Just give it proper names like Superbase via Lovable. Let's use Stripe via Lovable instead of Lemon Squeezy. And they have the same operational layout choice. On the shipping engine for more advanced, recommend the 10 stack hosted on whatever people who use 10 stack love to host on, and naturally they're also on GitHub. Also assume that with people who have chosen the simpler path like Lovable, with the decisions, like based on their previous decision, when they said Lovable, we need to kind of recommend that they use the simple path throughout. And whenever we say in the article, this is not doable with Lovable or something like that, we need to do some research and really say like, this is doable, but this has this limitation. If you choose your custom stack, this is better because X, Y, Z. I like Netlify for the advanced recommendation as alternative to Vercel. Maybe we should allow people a fourth option, which is called like other to the right, where they can just type in what they want and that's going to show up in the recommendation for them. Let's also commit to the layer 7 name operations layer and give me the suggestion for the subtitle. Please look at the last subtitle we wrote in week 7. That was very good. And then put the whole outline into our week 8 doc and I can approve it. Also put the stack builder component in there. So we are now drawing to the end of this interview process, and now it's about approving what has been decided. We now went through every decision point and they are asking me to improve it. And that way it is allowed to start with the next step, which is creating the linear project for me and doing that. In this document, I now got multiple 100 lines of context about everything I want to talk about in depth, have its research in there, have my opinion in there, and I'm happy with it. So we can now say it's approved and watch it create everything in linear for us. All right, I approved the outline. Let's do it. Now it knows what to do because it's part of this weekly process plan, and you will see it start messing with linear here. Now it's learning about linear. We can go to our project overview. And my expectation that is in progress, there will be now a content week 8 really soon. But everything is based on this context. And this context is not just important for the management, but for the creation of the page and all of the social media posts and the history of what we have talked about in the past. You saw on many points that the AI kind of really adopted my language very strongly, but that is because I talked to it so much and I built this memory system into it. So let's see what it's doing here. Now it created this project with an overview, and we will start seeing issues showing up here. Here you can see that it even references that important file that we have in our docs. And now it will start generating those issues. You can see it starts with, hey, we need to do the weekly planning and outlining. It's already checked off and estimated at 3 points. That is roughly right. It added this completely new step that isn't part of our normal flow. That is like this text stack builder component we have in our mind to make our article more interesting. Again, something I would never, ever be able to do like in the WordPress world. Potentially with vibe coding, but this is so much more fluent and elegant in my opinion. And it knows, we need to draft the Captain's Insights article. We need to create like a key visual and we need to record it. And all of the day of the week posts are now being created here. As you can see, everything assigned to me with an appropriate due date assigned to my weekly cycle and with estimations on how long this takes. Is that always correct? No, but I always use the same process. So I hope I get some comparative data over time. Now it should be almost finished, but can you see how all of this work, everything fully documented is in here? So you can go in here and it even knows the commands to use to create and sync a template that it wrote back to the email platform that we are using. So that should be almost done. It's now just updating this document again to reference Linea, that this is the project to go to. So those two places, this markdown document plus Linea, are the sources of truth for me. This is more like my workspace where I do my management, and the markdown file is more for the AI. But they both support each other. Okay, just to demo how this is actually getting things done, let's, for fun, build the article draft without this stack builder component, or let's just do that in there as well so you can see how insane this goes. All right, I want you to create the stack builder component and the article draft in one step, please, and just keep me up to date what decisions you made and follow our best practices when we work with our database. So the last sentence I said, because I know it likes to do things sometimes a bit differently than how I would recommend it. I need to make sure that I have my database running on my machine, and then it just starts with the tasks. I invested this time to document the process and make decisions that the right things are being done. Here it's automatically asking me to switch into plan mode, which I absolutely love. It's very helpful for it to create more complex things. And it realized, oh, there's a lot of context I need to be aware of. I need to plan multiple steps ahead. Let me switch to plan mode. It asked the user me to do it. Now it's creating to-dos for itself to get work that would normally be on me be done at a level that I couldn't have ever done before. So let's give it some time and come back here in a second. Here we can see that the context got a bit too big. So it summarized the content, and now it says like, I got a solid overview. Let me write down the plan, and then we tell it to build it. This is again another opportunity for us to review the plan, say, okay, maybe I want it a bit differently this way or that way, but overall, it's the right thing to do. Funny that it even created an issue that reminds me to update the /build/stack event page, evergreen page, because naturally this will make this outdated, and I'll have a beautiful new way to get to know the right tool stack in an article format with lots of context, but also like a standalone piece, and I'm looking forward to pushing that. In plan mode, it does some various things. It asks me questions, like here on the left-hand side. Do we want to reuse the existing insights votes, or do you want to create a new stack builder table? Since this is a feature I want to use outside, I decide to create a new stack builder. And now you can see it. Let's do the stack builder and the week 8 article. It's even writing like these mermaid diagrams, to see the different sections. And I'll just go with you through the first iteration. So once it's finished, you need to activate it by clicking the build button, and then it will take Opus 4.6 to go through all of this stuff. All right, now you see the to-do list here, and then you can see there's still a follow-up question. Let's build. And now, it writes the article for me while developing a new feature on pirateskills.com and integrating that into the article. Here it's now changing my database as we speak. It's doing that locally on my machine first, so it doesn't change anything in the production environment yet, because I want to see, does it work? I probably want to make changes and only do like the final version of that in production. Again, one of the advantages I get from doing this in my own stack compared to just taking what a tool like Lovable allows me to do. But to be honest, this can be more complex and harder to learn, but nothing that should scare you too much. Now, everything it did so far was essentially about building the interactive functionality of this article. I very much believe in that code is the new form of content. And I try to merge these two worlds, but it hasn't even written the full article yet. Very, very interesting. Here in the top right side, you can see everything that it did so far. Mostly we just worked in this week 8 document, but now it created a JavaScript code to make this interactive functionality for me. This is a file where all of the database changes are in, and that kind of stores a history of what has been changed. So it's we are able to revert it if we don't like anything or if something breaks. And I guess I like this. This is making good progress. Where was the plan? I wanted watch executing the plan. Now you can see that it's actually writing mostly text, and that is the real article now. Then it does the changes to the local database, and then it needs to check if everything is working and allowing us to review if the article is going to the right direction, which is the endpoint of this demo. But we will make it work, and we will get to a semi-satisfying first version. It will not yet have the fancy cover, and I'll do many changes to it, and you'll be able to read this article next Monday. Now it has completed the article. It's going to apply the migrations now to change the database. It found a conflict. It's now listing all of the migrations. It's going to repair it. Okay, it successfully did that. Created a new table in our database for something that I wanted to build for a long time, which is a real database entry where everyone in the community can decide this is my tech stack, that I want to currently build on, and that I can later use maybe to visualize some of that data, what the users have decided. Now it's going to check for any errors that it accidentally built into it, and that is the end of that plan. So let's now see what it created. Here it created the new article, as I said, not with the cover yet. And it's still ensuring that it has 0 errors, but we can start visiting this article. Okay, let's take a look at the article that it built. No cover yet, which is fine, but I'm very happy with the title and the subject line that I worked with. Doesn't yet have a video to link, so it's not showing up, but already linking to the podcast. It's introducing the topic, the problem of why most vibe coders hit a wall, and I like the word most. So I'll change that, for example. And then we come to the interesting part, to this idea of creating a compounding stack. And then there's the first layer. And here it asks me to make a decision. Do you want to use Lovable, Cursor, or Claude Code? And later you will be able to see how many builders chose this. So you can see a distribution of multiple people adding that. Or you can add something else if you prefer not any of these tools. Especially the more advanced people are expect to always have their own little packages and tools that they want to build. And then we go to the shipping layer, can make a decision here. Let's go to our recommendation, design layer. And over time, this will build the stack. So we have made 4 choices yet. So if we scroll all the way down, I would expect it to have created an overview. There's the stack already. It's the brain with the cursor, the shipping engine, and there are some others. And it allows me to copy the stack and then have a discussion about that within AI here. That is cool. I might improve the design of that, but that is an article experience in a way that I haven't seen before. And this is what is now possible. And vibe management in this simple content marketing example not only shows you that it does a lot of the organizational work here in where we already now created the draft, but we are still building that. So nothing is yet checked off here. But this is already really a strong foundation. And I can simply say something like, hey, update Linear in our weekly plan. The draft is now in progress, but the build stack component is done. And now we see it updating these to-dos. And not only that, but actually documenting how everything has been done and where it is done. So later if the AI checks, it knows. So you can look into this and it now knows everything, how we implemented it, where it's documented, where the spec is. And later if I commit the code, then they will be even attached to this. And this is the new way to work. And I know exactly I need to continue with the draft now. Then for Monday, I need to prepare things. I hope you enjoyed this live demo. You're going to enjoy this article next Monday. And I hope you find this as fun and inspiring as I do. See you then. Bye-bye.